Hi students, we are going over lesson 3.4 today, and it has to do with the distributive property. Again, we've been talking about properties for the last few days in our lessons, and today we are going to introduce you to one that is pretty helpful when you're doing algebra. So when I have a couple, I like to start out with these little comics right here. So it says, when using distributive property, multiply all the things. So distributive property, we're going to be using multiplication. And then this one, distributive property, the only property that does not have two types. Now, if you recall, when we talked about associative property, there were associative that could deal with addition and multiplication. And you could also have the commutative property that dealt with addition and multiplication, and the identity properties, again, addition and multiplication. But the distributive property is kind of unique in that it's only dealing with multiplication. So you'll see how that works here in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so let's take a look at your bell work first. Let's take a look at number one. It wants us to write the expression to represent 4 times the sum of a number and 7. Okay, so what I like to say is to students that are kind of struggling with this is break it up into pieces. So, you know, we know what a 4 looks like. Times, we know we're dealing with multiplication. Sum means addition. Of a number means, well, it's a variable. We can call it whatever we want. And then we have the number 7. So it says 4 times the sum of a number and 7. So I want to focus on the sum of a number and 7 first. So it means add. So I'm going to just call it x plus 7. And then what's happening to that? We're 4 timesing it. So you could, I think this is probably the best way to do that, is just put a 4 on the outside, and we're going to times the sum of a number and 7. So there you go. Pretty simple. Okay, so number 2, again, well, we're kind of reviewing what we just learned. Okay, so I have a square that or a rectangle I'm going to put all around my y. Now, I don't see any other y's, but I do see some x's, so I'm going to use a circle around my x's. And then it looks like I have some regular numbers. They don't have a last name, so we're going to use triangles. So let's combine these like terms now. Again, reviewing kind of what I taught last week is that we do things in alphabetical order. So I'm going to start with my x's first. So I'm going to go 4 minus 2, which is 2x. Then I'm going to start with my y, go next with the y's. So that's a 7y, but if there's no symbol out here, is it positive or is it negative? If there's no symbol, it means it's positive. So I'm going to put plus 7y. And then I am going to look at my regular numbers. 4 plus 8 is 12, positive 12. Okay, so there is my simplified expression. Now it wants us to answer these questions from the simplified expression. What is the coefficient of x? Well, 2 is the coefficient of x. What is the constant? Well, 12 is the constant. And then what are the terms? Remember, the terms in an expression is everything except for the symbols. So I have 2 times x, comma, 7 times y, comma, and 12. So that is the terms of that expression. So pretty simple. Okay, so let's take a look at number 3 now. Based on the diagram, describe how a quadrilateral and a triangle are related. So we have this quadrilateral, and we can see that if we split it in half, it makes a triangle. So how are they related? And it wants us to kind of write it in math. So, well, I guess we can use just words here. Based on the diagram, describe how, okay, so triangle is 1/2 of a quadrilateral. Lateral. I forgot an R. Okay, so pretty simple there. All right, if you would please turn to page 53 in your journal. We have some notes to fill out that is going to be helpful to you as you do your assignment today. And it'll also kind of give us kind of a platform to kind of practice some of this distributive property that we're going to be talking about today. So let's take a look right here. And the meaning of a word, so distribute. When you distribute something to each person in a group, you give that thing to each person in the group. So you can kind of see right here, it looks like this is supposed to be a shirt. I know it looks just like a bow, but it is a shirt. So you're going to give everybody in the group the shirt. So you can see this shirt went to this girl and it went to this boy. That's why the girl has a shirt, the boy has a shirt. So we distributed something. And we can use that in mathematics. So use the order of operations. So we're going to do that here. We are going to go 7 plus 2, because that's in parentheses is 9. And then we're going to go 3 times 9 equals 27. Okay, now it wants us to use the distributive property. And usually, guys, when this dot is there, it means we're multiplying everything in there. But you're going to start to see that they start like a number 4 down here. There is no dot anymore, but it still means multiply. So we're going to distribute. And some teachers call this Santa hat, because you're going to see why. We go 3 times 7 is 21. And then 3 times 2 is 6. And you can kind of see up here that it made a Santa hat. So, you know, it made this little hat looking thing. So 21 plus 6 is 27. So we are using order of operations. The distributive property is just an extension of that whole idea of using your order of operations. So let's practice a couple of these and kind of, get the hang of it. So it says use distributive property to simplify the expression. So we're going to go 7 times A is 7A, and 7 times 3 is 21. That is our answer. I know you probably are not used to having that as an answer in mathematics, but sometimes that's as far as we can go. So if we knew what A was, we could come up with a solid answer, but that's as far as we can go. 7A plus 21. All right, let's try this next one. 3 times D is 3D. And 3 times negative 11 is negative 33. There we go. That's as far as we can go. All right, moving on. Number 3, we're going to go 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 6 is 48. And then 8 times negative 4n is negative 32n. Now, that's a plus, not a multiply. Can we combine like terms? Yeah, we're going back to that lesson that we learned last week, that this guy right here and this guy right here go together. So we have to go 16 and 48. That's 14, 4, 5, 6, 64. So this turns into 64 minus 32n. So not too bad. You just have to remember, after you distribute, always to check to see if they can simplify. Remember, if it has a variable and this number does not have a variable, they can't go together. Also, if it's a different variable, like if we had 6b over here, the b cannot go with the a. Remember, they do not have the last name. If they do not have the last name, they cannot go together. All right, so number 4, 10 times j is 10j, and 10 times negative 6 is negative 60. This isn't too bad, huh? So let's go on to number 5. 8 times 12 is 96, And 8 times C is 8C. Okay, and now we're going to go to one of these other ones that I kind of talked about on number 3. 2 times N is 2N. 2 times 4 is 8. And 2 times 7 is, or 7M is 14M. Now, can any of these go together? The 2N, are there any other N's? Nope. 8, are there any other numbers that are just by themselves? No last name. No. 14M, are there any other terms that have an M? No. So that is our final answer. All right, moving on to the next section here. We're practicing some more of this. So you can see right here that they went 5 times 3, and they got 15. Then they went 5 times 4, and they got 20. So that's how that worked. So that we call this right here factored, and this is distributed. Okay, and we can go back and forth between this, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow, how we can take this and turn it back into this. So let's go on to this one down here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can kind of see a little better. So this, we're just going to practice this. We're going to go, let's just rewrite it. 3, 2 plus x. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times x is 3x. And you can see that our answer matches up to this one. Okay? All right. Let's go on to the next one. 2 times 4x is 8x. And then 2 times 3y is 6y. And you can see our answer right here matches up with this. We did it right. Okay. One last one here. 5 times p is 5p. And 5 times negative 11 is negative 55. Does it match up with what we have over here? Yeah, it does. I'm going to do the second part of these notes tomorrow. So let's practice doing this today. Let's move on to your practice. All right, so you should have your practice out, and you should be filling in what I have here. All right, on this first section, it wants, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but we're going to try this out and see how you feel about it. It wants us to use the distributive property on this regular multiplication problem. And maybe you've seen this, maybe you haven't. So I'm going to go 4 times 30 is 120. And then 4 times 1 is 1, or is 4. So my answer would be 124. So yeah, it doesn't just work for algebra. You can actually use it for other things. So 7 times 40 is 280. And then 7 times 9 is 63. And we add those together. Oh, whoops, I multiplied. 8 plus 6 is 14, so 1 and 4, and then 3. 343 would be the answer. Now, this one is kind of like, whoa, what am I going to do here? Think about it for a minute. What would you do? So it wants us to use the distributive property. Well, that's 16 times 38. What would you do? I want you to stop for a minute, hit pause, and try that one out. See if you can figure out a way to use the distributive property to come up with an answer on this one. All right, for an answer, you should have got 608. That one is a little bit more difficult, and if you just resorted to doing 16 times 38, that would have worked too. To do distributive property with that, you've got to do quite a few steps of distribution there. Let's move on to number 4. The distributive property, use distributive property to simplify the expression. Okay, so we're going to go do that Santa hat thing. 8 times 5, 40. 8 times W, 8W. Okay, That's it. We're done. Let's do the next one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer because I'm having a hard time writing it. So 11 times 9 is 99, and then 11 times D is 11D. Okay? Number 6. Oh, here's one that has 3. Do you think we can handle this? I think we can. So 15 times P is 15P. 15 times 4. Oh, that's 60. And then 15 times 2 is 30. Now again, you always have to look, if you have more than 2 things there, you got to go, okay, well, do they combine? Well, we can see that the 15P is by itself, and then we have a 60 and a 30 that are in the same, they have the same last name, same family. So let's combine those. The 15P is by itself, so we're just going to drop that 15P down, and then we have 60 plus 30, which is 90. Okay? So, not too difficult, not too horrible. Now it wants us to simplify these expressions. Now, we're going back to combining like terms. So, what it wants us to do here is it wants us to go, okay, there's a 2x, this is in the same family, and then this guy is in its own family. So we're going to combine like terms. 2x plus 3x is 5x. Bring down the negative 4, and you're done. So we're kind of having you review some of the steps that we've done on previous lessons here. So again, 4y, negative 3y, then we've got a circle and a circle. Let's combine like terms now. So 4y minus 3y. Well, you might say it's 1y, but remember, what's the best way to write 1y? It's just y. And then we have negative 2, or negative 1 plus 2. So again, I'm going to use my little number line here. So I'm at negative 1, and then I'm going to add 2 to it. So I'm going to the right, so I'm going to add 2. 1, 2. So it's 1. So we're going to go positive 1. So that's the answer on that one. Now, we're going to throw this distributive property in here. Now, it has parentheses, but remember, I've said this, that when you have a number on the outside of the parentheses, it's part of the parentheses. And if we are following order of operations, we have to do everything with the parentheses first. So 2 times x, 2x. 2 times negative 4, negative 8. And then we're just going to bring this x plus down. Now we can combine like terms. We have an x and we have a 2x that are in the same family. And then we have a negative 8, has no last name, so it's its own thing. So we're going to go x plus 2x. Well, if I have an x and I put 2 x's with it, we've got 3x minus 8. So really not that complex if you just remember that you've got to use some of the previous knowledge you've gained from other lessons here. A jazz band sells 31 large boxes of fruit and 74 small boxes of fruit for a fundraiser. Now it wants us to use the distributive property to write and simplify an expression for the profit. After I looked at that problem, students, let's just not look at that one right now. So I want you guys to just work on distributing. So this is getting a little bit more complex, so I'm not going to actually go over that right now. I'm going to revisit that at a later date, probably in the next 2 days from now. All right, let's take a look at your assignment. All right, I'm looking at your assignment, and it looks like you should be able to do this one fairly easily. It doesn't look like any of those are too difficult. That you should be able to just use the Santa hat and distribute that number that's on the outside of the parentheses to the numbers or to the things inside the parentheses. Number 10, read that carefully and see which one of those works, which one of those is saying, because you have to choose A, B, C, or D, and then explain your reasoning. So don't forget to use a sentence or two to explain what's going on that. All right, students, good luck, and we'll see you tomorrow.